Fox News is going to use the riots in Baltimore to talk about how great rich people are. Classic Fox News.
Just days ago, rioters tore through the city, looting and leaving a wake of destruction. But Congressman Keith Ellis says if you're looking for somebody to blame, blame the affluent, the wealthy.
What we've done in the United States is we've said that the affluent part of our society is going to demand more tax breaks, more wealth, more privilege, leaving less for the less fortunate. And the way that we keep the less fortunate in control is through policing and prisons. That is the unfortunate formula that we've constructed.
Charles Payne is the host of Making Money on the Fox Business Network. He joins us live. Well, what do you think about that?
It's an old, tired excuse. It really is. I mean, when someone else is breaking in and looting and robbing and burning buildings, to blame someone in a different part of town. I understand the animosity, I understand the jealousy, but even the idea or the notion that somehow we have a fixed amount of money in this society, and so that if one person is getting more, somebody else is getting less. Prime example, we just had the NFL draft last night.
Sure.
Somebody's going to sign a contract and get $30 million in a couple of weeks. It's not going to take a penny out of my pocket. It won't take a penny out of anybody who's watching's pocket.
Well, all you got to do, Charles, is look at history. For decades, we have poured trillions of dollars into the war on poverty.
Right.
And it hasn't worked.
It hasn't worked.
Oh, yeah, no, it definitely hasn't worked. Now, notice, they're totally dismissive of what Keith Ellison said, when what he said is irrefutable. They're attempting to refute it, but it's irrefutable. All he's saying is, look, in the United States of America, we have two Americas. We have the haves and the have-nots. And when you're dealing with people who are have-nots, and you have police officers who are adding insult to injury and who are repeatedly oppressing them and going after them with broken windows, policing styles, and stops and frisks and ridiculous drug laws and stuff like that, you're going to have a backlash. You're going to have people go a little nuts and start breaking shit when they're murdered and they're oppressed and they're put down and they don't see a way out. There is no equal opportunity. There are two Americas, the haves and the have-nots. He's shedding light on something that is absolutely true, but they're just like, no, I mean, how dare he do that? Look at him using tired old arguments. No, you're using tired old arguments. And by the way, to the idea that, like, oh, he's calling for a war on poverty, but the war on poverty hasn't worked. No. That's absolutely untrue, and I'm going to prove it to you. The war on poverty has worked, but we haven't done nearly enough. That's the problem. So Keith Ellison is right when he says, let's do more, because from when we started the war on poverty until today, and even going further back to FDR's programs until today, those programs absolutely made the country better and absolutely gave people more opportunity. But the issue is, we're not doing it enough. We need to do more programs, or we need to actually get to a place where there's equal opportunity for everybody. But yes, the war on poverty works, and I'll prove it to you. So let's take a look at the first chart here. Here we have the numbers of people who were kept out of poverty by these different social safety net programs. So Social Security, 26.6 million people were kept out of poverty by that. Tell me again how the war on poverty doesn't work. Refundable tax credits, 9.4 million people kept out of poverty. SNAP, which is food stamps, 5 million people kept out of poverty because of it. Supplemental security income, 3.3 million people. Housing subsidies, 2.8 million people. Unemployment, 2.4 million people. Child support, 1.3 million people. School lunch, 1.2 million people. Public assistance, which I believe is the old school welfare program, 641,000 people. Women, infants, and children, so the WIC program, which gives like formula like to babies of poor mothers. What a horrible program that is. 397,000 people. Workers' compensation, 320,000 people kept out of poverty. Low-income home energy assistance program, 260,000 people kept out of poverty. And then let's also take a look at the overall poverty rate here, so you see just how well the war on poverty has worked. The poverty rate as it stands today is about 15%. That's the official rate. Now, what would the rate be without government programs? The official prediction is it would be about 28 or 29%. So it's basically been cut in half. you would have poverty. Poverty would be about 30% if it wasn't for the government programs. With government programs, it's dropped to about 15%. So, yes, Fox News, Keith Ellison is absolutely right when he talks about the two Americas. And you are absolutely wrong when you talk about the war on poverty not working. The answer is not only to do a war on poverty, but to do a real war on poverty and do more of these programs and get equal opportunity for everybody. And then we'd be put in a situation where you don't have nearly as many cases of communities, doing a backlash to try to fight back against oppression and their people getting murdered and all these problems. Obviously, other things go into this, like we said before, how you have to change the drug laws and how you have to change the broken windows style policing and change stop and frisk and all that stuff in New York and in other places. So you need to attack this from both angles. But without question, the war on poverty has worked. And without question, even with that being the case, we still have two Americas. We need to do more of those policies. And finally, when they say, well, if one person is getting rich, that doesn't mean that, other people are getting less. This is the old Republican thought virus. My wealth doesn't make you poor. Actually, yes, it does. Which is why in the Scandinavian region, for example, they have high marginal taxes on the rich, so they can take that money and redistribute it in the form of healthcare, education, vacation pay, daycare, all these great programs which gives people an equal opportunity. It absolutely is the case that your wealth is making other people poor. The Waltons, between 6 of them, they have more money than the bottom 45% of Americans. You're really going to tell me that their wealth isn't making people poor? It absolutely is making people poor. If we had laws that forced them to pay their workers $15 an hour, for example, then those people would be less poor. Yes, their wealth is making people poor. At any point in time in the world, there is a fixed amount of money. It exists, a fixed amount, and it's divvied up a certain way. So yes, if one person has all the money, then everybody else is more poor as a result of it. There was that Oxfam study. 85 people have more money than the bottom 3.5 billion people in the world. 85 people have more money than 50% of the world. And you're going to tell me that this person's wealth doesn't mean other people are poor. Of course it does. In typical Fox News fashion, they get everything wrong.